So I'd like to welcome you all to the Medical Marijuana and Wellness webinar series. Tonight's topic is anxiety, stress, and medical marijuana. This is a popular webinar in that a lot of people, unfortunately, due to a lot of conditions, including what's been going on in our environment the last couple of years, stress and anxiety is something that we've been living with, and it's on the increase. We're going to talk to you tonight about how medical marijuana can help you. And more importantly, the goal of these webinars is to be able to help you get your life back. Our goal is if we have one person get their life back, that their life becomes better by listening to the webinar and using medical cannabis. We feel we've been accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. And we're here to answer your questions. So please feel free to answer your questions, ask questions. You'll see down below, you'll see a little looks like a double bubble. It says Q&A. Please feel free to ask questions there. We'll be monitoring that and following that. There is a chat button that's kind of over here. Some people put things in chat and we will kind of follow that, but we pay a lot more attention to Q&A. So if you want your questions answered, please pay attention to the Q&A button. Again, we're here to answer your questions and there are no such things as dumb questions. So please feel free to bring them forward. I'm honored tonight to co-host this with a lady who I've done a couple webinars with, who's been in the medical cannabis field for a while and has really helped quite a bit. And I'd like to introduce Jenni Fried from let's say Moved by Verano now, right?
Moved by Verano. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate, coming on with you. It's always a pleasure to do these webinars with you. And this one is like you said, a hot topic, especially with our conditions. I feel like everybody is dealing with anxiety and stress and is interested in natural alternatives to help. So you guys came to the right place and Mark and I are here to help you guys. So thank you for joining us tonight. And thank you, Mark, for having us.
Oh, you're a pleasure. It's been, I've been a fan of Move products for a long time. I'm an active user of your products. So let's kind of get into the webinar. And I think what we're going to do is I'm going to share some slides for everybody. So let me share my screen here for a minute. And here, and we're here. Okay, so tonight's webinar is part of the Medical Marijuana and Wellness webinar series. As you can see down here, it's one of the ones we're kind of wrapping up this week, this quarter's webinars. We will have webinars next quarter. We'll have one a week, and we'll be announcing within the next week the webinars for next quarter. More importantly, the webinar tonight is going to be is being live streamed currently on Facebook, and we will send you at the end of this webinar. Over here, we will send you at the end of this webinar a copy of the recording. It'll be in an email. You'll be able to link to a YouTube video, copies of the slides. You'll be able to see that, sponsor discounts, speaker information, and of course, links to all the resources that we use to be able to put this webinar together. So I know that we go through this. It's kind of like sometimes some people tell me it's like drinking water out of a fire hose. I know there's a lot of information that's out there. So you'll be able to get that. You'll be able to go through it. You'll be able to see it. And more importantly, you'll be able to pass it on to your friends if you have some people that are interested in this particular topic. And again, feel free to click on the Q&A button over here. We are definitely here to answer your questions and look forward to being able to do that. So let's talk about anxiety and stress. Jenni, this is something that's really interesting. I like to kind of, at the beginning of these webinars, I like to be able to define the subject that we're talking about. I know that stress is something that's both physical and mental, and it's something that's triggered by something external. I know that stress is something where your body responds to some sort of a challenge that's out there. That could be work, it could be life related, it could be a number of different things. But stress is brought on by a number of things. It's interesting because we get into this kind of fear and flight type of a mode. And it's one of the things that's triggered with stress that's out there. And so it's interesting that it's normal on one side, but on the other side of the coin, it's something that we should be able to manage. And if it gets away from us, it's something that really causes a lot of anxiety. It causes a lot of pain. And it's something that we really need to pay attention to. I mean, tell me a little bit about the other side of it. If you get a lot of stress, you get into anxiety.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about the anxiety side.
Right. So the anxiety is more of the, the clinical side of it and the part of it where it's more of your body, your brain chemistry, genetics, your personality, life events. So a lot of times the stress in your life and whatever the circumstances may be will then end up causing anxiety. So, it could have a mental stress on your body as well as mental stress. So it affects, physical and mental. And it says an estimated 264 million people worldwide have an anxiety disorder. And I wouldn't be surprised that if that number is even higher now, because I feel like, since COVID and everything, our patients, I feel like I'm throwing out this number, but I feel like 90% of our patients come in telling us that they have some sort of, stress and anxiety. So it's very, very prevalent. And luckily, cannabis is here to help with some of those symptoms.
Sure. Sure. When you see, we talk about stress, we're talking about elevated blood pressure, your chest pains. You can see the physical side of it. The anxiety side comes but more on the mental side. Right. And that's where you see the people that, and when you look at like 31% of the adults in the United States at one point in time, if not today, is affected by it. You're not alone if you have stress and anxiety, that's for sure. And I know that when we did the seminars in person, we had a lot of people that talked to us about this particular topic. So, excuse me, let me. So it's something that is there. You kind of know if you have it, and but I think there's also. Let me give you some examples. Why don't you take us through a couple of examples of the stress and anxiety that people see, Jenny?
Sure. So as we were talking about in the slide before, so stress is, the stuff that happens in your everyday life. So for example, we have this gentleman in the first slide and he's double charged for his electric bill. So of course, everyone knows that'll cause extreme stress. So, that's something that was caused by something externally. So it wasn't, something biologically or something outside happened to him and caused stress. Same with number 2. She's worried about her medical exam. So she's having trouble sleeping. She's having headaches. And this is something from the stress of the anticipation of having a big, large test. So that's something that's induced from the outside. But then you go over to the other side and you have anxiety. And this is where you have the fears. And this lady right here in the third slide, she has a fear of visiting the doctor when she's sick or when she goes anywhere. And she has this overall anxiety that affects her on a day-to-day basis. That is a physical and mental, disability for her, and something that she can't really control from the external factors. And then you have number 4, and he's the same type of thing about he's more social, but when he finds himself in a crowd, he feels he's sweating. I'm sure some of you have that, where you start to feel a little anxious, or you're sweating, you feel dizzy, you feel lightheaded. These are the physical signs that causes your brain and your body to react to anxiety.
Yeah, and what happens is you have a situation where his brain feels he feels threatened, and so what happens is his body is reacting to that, or he's out of his comfort zone, he's out of his safety zone. But people perceive that stress and anxiety can come from big events. A lot of these are like little events. I know that we went through a situation where my wife had some medical tests done, and waiting for those was a bit not only stressful, but it brought a lot of anxiety into the party. We kind of felt she was going to be okay, and she was okay, but that waiting period is also something that is just not fun. Let's put it that way. So what do the researchers say? Well, what's interesting when you take a look at this is we have what they call an endocannabinoid system. And we'll talk a little bit during this presentation about what the endocannabinoid system is and how it works. But what's interesting is science has shown us that the ECS system plays an important role in regulating our anxiety, our fear, and our stress response. And it's something that's been proven in many different ways. There's a lot of science behind this, but it's something that's very, very effective. And also terpenes play a role. Jenny, tell us a little bit about, for example, not only about how the ECS system helps with stress and anxiety, but tell us a little bit of how it helps individuals with PTS. Sure.
So the studies have shown, which is remarkable, that one of the greatest things that cannabis helps with is PTSD. And the studies have shown that a lot, not only does the cannabis use help with PTSD, but it also helps those suffering from PTSD who have currently been on other types of medication to reduce that use of that medication in the substitute of cannabis. So whether removing those pharmaceutical drugs altogether, or at least lessening those pharmaceutical drugs with replacement of cannabis, a natural alternative. And then also right underneath that, so I think we'll talk about terpenes a little bit later, but to give you a broad view, so terpenes are actually something that's naturally derived in the cannabis plant. We like to call it almost like the aromatherapy of cannabis. So just like with any other, when you feel you have lavender and you want to take a nice relaxing bath at night. So you take lavender at night to relax you. Cannabis has the same type of thing called linalool. So you take that at night because it relaxes you. So that's the same type of things. And we found that there's certain terpenes on the plant that actually help specifically with stress and anxiety. So giving people the benefits and the help that they need because of those certain terpenes that are in the plant specifically.
Sure. And terpenes help you dial in. We'll talk about terpenes again later in the presentations, but terpenes help you dial in the relief that you're really looking for. And that's what's important to understand, that they work hand in hand with the cannabinoids that are out there. There's also been some patient studies. I think it's important as you're looking at this, it's important to take a look at what patient studies have come up, because we have a situation where, everybody always worries about whether this is really real or not. The answer is yeah. Tell us a little bit about what happened in Canada.
Sure. So actually, the cannabis program started out there, and there's different license holders there that created surveys of patients. And, unfortunately, we don't get a lot of research just because of it here in the United States, because of being federally illegal. So a lot of times we have to go to Canada or to Israel to get our research. So because they're way ahead of us here in the United States. So what they found out of 2,000 respondents, that 44% received benefit from using cannabis for their anxiety and got relief from that. And then also 92% of those diagnosed with anxiety reported improvement symptoms with cannabis use. So you can see here that the evidence is there. The proof is in the pudding.
I'm going to make a comment here. I know I saw this study and I read it, before preparing for this. 92% response rate. I don't see a lot of pharma studies coming anywhere close to that. That's what I'm trying to point out. These studies are absolutely remarkable with respect to the outcomes that we're seeing from them. And I know people say, well, what happened to 8%? In many cases, a lot of the pharma drugs, you're looking at, if you get better than a 50%, 60% uptake, they think it's fantastic. So sure. I think we're finding something that really does work in this particular situation. Washington State did a little bit of work. I think you used strain print for that, right?
Yeah, so if you guys are unfamiliar with Strain Print, it's a free app that you can download on your phone, and it's basically a cannabis experience tracker. So you're able to say, oh, I went to Move, I tried Slurricane, and I was trying to treat insomnia, and whether it worked or not. And we basically get the data from those reports. So based off of the Strain Print data, they found that out of 11,000 sessions, that 3,151 were tracked for depression, with 89.3% of the sessions reflecting an improvement in their levels of depression. Like you said earlier, that's a huge number, 89.3% showing improvement. And like you said earlier, if we can just help, just one person. So, I mean, if 89% are getting relief, then, I feel like we've done our job. And then going on, so over 5,000 sessions were tracked for anxiety, and then even higher, 93.5% sessions reflected improvement for anxiety. And then going down for another 3,717 sessions tracked for stress, 93.3% sessions reflected an improvement. So overall, everybody is seeing positive effects from the use of cannabis to help with stress and anxiety.
Yeah, and these are real life patients. These isn't a theoretical something. And these aren't mice. I mean, these are real people. That's what's important to understand about these studies. It's very, very impressive. So let's talk about anxiety, stress, and CBD and THC. I know one of the things comments I made earlier, and I want to make it again, is THC is great for pain, and THC is great for when you use it in low doses. It helps ease a lot of the anxiety that's out there. However, if you take it in high doses, what it can do is it has the potential to worsen the anxiety that you have. So it's really interesting that if you need to regulate, you do have, this is where dosing comes into play. You have to be able to regulate the amount of THC that see how THC tolerant you are, and be able to regulate that, because if you regulate it correctly, it's your friend. If you don't regulate it correctly, it can become not a friend.
Well, so, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna interject because, I personally suffer from anxiety, and every person is different, and that's something we'll go in a little bit, later on in the presentation. So what works for you may not work for me, and vice versa. But typically we find that patients who suffer from anxiety sometimes have a worsened effect with sativas. So for example, for me, I know that when I take a sativa, if I have, a high stress event going on or something like that, if I have sativas, it tends to make my heart race a little bit more. So I know that for me personally, I have to lean more towards indicas or hybrids because of my anxiety. But again, that's not, one size fits all, but that's just how it is for me, and just kind of an overall generalization, but just something to be aware of.
Right. And it is something to pay attention to. Now, I know that, people talk about THC bringing on anxiety, but also when you use CBD, if you take CBD with THC, it reduces that effect that THC has. And in fact, when I work with patients, I always recommend that they have a bottle of CBD oil available. And so if they start getting to a point where the THC, you feel that euphoric effect, you don't want to have that euphoric effect, or if it's something that's bringing on anxiety, take an equal amount of the CBD, and literally within 20 minutes, 30 minutes, it'll bring you back down to where you really want to be. And I think that's important.
I think that especially for edibles, because sometimes people don't realize, when the effects are going to take place, and they take too much, and then they start to get and feel very medicated. So having CBD on hand, particularly for edibles, is a good idea.
Yeah, edibles are always fun because they can take sometimes up to an hour to work. And a lot of people don't have the patience to be able to wait that hour to get the effect of the edibles. Right. I know I was mentioning to you earlier, Jenny, when we had preparing, my mother had a situation where she had breast cancer 4 years ago. And one of the things we tried, or we actually she takes now is edibles. But the first time we gave her some edibles, we told her, take a quarter of a brownie and wait about an hour and we'll see what goes on. And my Portuguese Italian mother, who has the patience of a gnat, decided that she wasn't going to do that. And she ate, after about 5 minutes, she ate the second quarter of the brownie, and then third quarter of the brownie, and the fourth quarter of the brownie. And of course,
I feel like we all have a story like that.
An hour later, she's feeling good. She calls me up and says, "What's going on?" And my brother went over and saw her and calls me back and says, "Mom's baked." And she just, you got to have some patience, We got her some CBD oil, brought her back down. But the point is, pay attention to that. And especially with edibles, be very careful with edibles, because edibles will take a while to work. They will work. Just be cool, baby. Let them give them time, and let them work this out there. But again, THC can be your friend. It can be not your friend. So this is where dosing comes into play, and we'll talk more about it as we go along. Does medical marijuana affect your medications? And the answer is it should not. There's a number of medications that are out there that actually that people tend to use. And we've taken a look at almost all of them. And what's interesting is when you take a look at medical cannabis versus what the pharma companies are recommending, every pharma drug that's out there has some sort of a negative effect on you. And what's interesting is medical cannabis isn't going to kill you. You're not going to get addicted to it, and it's not going to hurt you. Now, the only place that you need to pay a lot of attention is over here is when you get into blood thinners, when you get anything that has to do with heart rate, it has to do with blood pressure. The Xanaxes, the Ambiens, things like that. What you've got to be careful of is it will potentially, because cannabis is distributed in your body through the bloodstream, it will have an effect on you. So this is where you need to talk to your medical cannabis doctor and your medical doctor to make sure that you get your dosing correct. This is where dosing is really, really important. And again, if your doctor is not familiar with cannabis, talk to your medical cannabis doctor. He'll walk them through there. I know there's a lot of people that I deal with that do have blood pressure problems, do have heart problems, that are on cannabis. But again, we've got the dosing right, and it really works really well. So it's not a showstopper. It's just one of those
got to
things
work carefully.
Pay attention to what's out there. You got any comments on that, Jenny?
No, I was just saying exactly. It's not a no-go. It's just, to work more carefully with your doctor.
Right. And this is where dosing comes into play. Dosing is very important, and it's something to really pay attention to. But it should not have any effect on anything except for anything related to blood pressure and also your heart condition, your heart rate, things like that are out there. I do want to throw in a quick slide. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. There are some discounts that we will provide. First of all, we talked to you about getting the marijuana aware webinars. You'll be able to look at and see all the past webinars that we've done, not only on this topic, but other ones. If you click on this link, which you'll get in the presentation, and you'll see in the follow-up, we have a patient information brochure that has information on medical cannabis, has information on dosing, that type of thing. That could be very helpful for you. If you want to get a medical marijuana card, if you go to MMTC of Florida and use the MMAW10, you get a 10% discount. There's some links to be able to find that. And then also we've been asked, we're not trying to compete with Move, that's for sure. We've been asked, where do you find quality CBD products? Where do we find, if I'm going to get that CBD product that I'm going to use, how do I know that I have a quality product? Because, you know, we can literally go to a gas station and a grocery store and buy this stuff, but how do I know what I'm getting really works? And we put together a site and some products called My Botanical Wellness. These are doctor vetted and doctor recommended products that are out there. And we have, and again, we have a discount code of MMAW10 on that if you want to be able to get that. And I think, Jenny, you'll have some discounts at the end of this in your presentation we'll talk about. So
yes, sir.
Discounts are always good. We want to thank everybody for showing up, and here's some resources available to you for coming to the webinar, and thank you very much. Let's change horses for a second. Let's talk about the endocannabinoid system. A lot of people have not heard about this, and it's something that's absolutely critical. What's fascinating is when the endocannabinoid system was found, it really revolutionized the way a lot of doctors thought about how the body works. I mean, it's fascinating. It took us until 1940 to discover that it existed. It really took us almost 40 more years until the 80s and 90s to really understand what it is and how it worked. But now that we have, it's interesting. This is how your body regulates itself. You have CB1 receptors and you have CB2 receptors in your entire body. And what do those receptors do? Well, they help regulate. This is how your body regulates your pain, your memory, your appetite, your inflammation, your immune system, and candidly, your anxiety and your stress. This is how your body kind of, it says we have a problem, and it creates endocannabinoid. Your body creates endocannabinoids and distributes it to that part of the body to be able to help them. And it's interesting how what they really found out was the cannabis works like hand in glove with the CB1 and CB2 receptors to really provide, and this is how you get your homeostasis. Here's how you get your human health. That's really
I think when I first got into the industry, this was one of the most mind-blowing parts to learning about cannabis, to know that there was a whole other system in our bodies that we really, didn't know about, that even, doctors were not taught about in med school. So this is something that's revolutionary, but has been there the whole time. And no wonder, that people have been using cannabis for all of these years, because it actually is legit. Your body needs that. So it's like you said, a locking key. So a lot of times your receptors in your body are void or are not getting what they need. And therefore, when you have cannabis, whether it's the CBD or THC or any other cannabinoid that you decide to take, there's actually a place in your body that's craving it. And so that's why your body is responding so well to some of these things.
Right. And what's fascinating is when you look at this, your CB1 receptors, which are mainly in the brain and the nervous system, these are the light colored ones. And your CB2 receptors are mainly in your immune system, okay, and your peripheral organs. They are throughout your body. And it's something that, in fact, they're on the skin as well, which is fascinating. We did a webinar on topicals, and it was interesting to see how the topicals work, because they really triggering these things. And you're right, the medical doctors, especially your older doctors, this is kind of new news for them. And to be blunt, a lot of the new doctors, again, medical school doesn't teach you this. So it's something that's out there, but it is real, and it does in fact work. What's interesting is your body, you yourself, produce what they call endocannabinoids. That's how your body manages itself. When your brain sees there's a problem and your nervous system sees there's a problem, it triggers the endocannabinoids and they get distributed to your body, that part of your body that needs help. Now, photoendocannabinoids, which are the ones that are produced from the plants, these are the buds, the tinctures, and that type of thing. And we tend to look at them as like THC, CBD, CBN, that type of thing. Those also complement the endocannabinoids that your body has. And again, they work hand in glove with your CB1 and your CB2 receptors to, again, to manage your appetite, your pain, your anxiety, your stress, that type of thing. Now, there are synthetically produced drugs that are out there, like Marinol. And Marinol has been around for a while. It's something that some doctors use. It is a pure THC only product. And being a pure THC only product, it doesn't have what they call the entourage effect. It doesn't have a lot of the benefits of medical cannabis. It is very much like a pharma drug, targeted to do one particular thing. It does that well, but it's not something that's going to be a healing component for your whole body. So I tend to recommend staying away from Marinol unless you're under close doctor's care, to be able to walk you through that. And so I kind of put that one over on the side and pay attention to the photoendocannabinoids and the endocannabinoids. But what's interesting is the way your body works is you have your endocannabinoid system, and you have your cannabis, that gets stored in the fatty acids of your body. A lot of people perceive that when you take cannabis, it goes into the CB1 and the CB2 receptors. It does not. It goes into your fatty acids. And then when your neurons see that you have a problem, when your body sees you have a problem, it triggers those fatty acids to become long chain fatty acids. And then they get distributed through your body in that part of your body that needs the help that's out there. And that's what's really interesting, is your body is controlling what's there. And your body doesn't need a doctor to tell you have a problem. Your neurons in your body will tell your body that it's there. It really explains two things. Number one is the entourage effect. The entourage effect means I take the cannabis for one reason and another reason works. I take it because I'm worried about knee pain, for example, and all of a sudden I find that my shoulder pain goes away, that type of thing. Or being able to sleep at night where I wasn't able to sleep before, but I was taking it for my knee pain. So it has other effects. That's your body, that's your neurons telling your body you need help, and your body helping yourself out. Right. The other is, this explains why no one's ever died from cannabis, because this is your body. All it's doing is it's supplementing the natural process of your own body. And so your body's producing its own medicine. And that's what's interesting. That's why no one's ever died by using medical cannabis. And candidly, people don't get addicted from it. I know that, people have asked me, I take medical cannabis because I have 7 herniated discs in my neck and 2 in my back. And I do take holidays now and then. Every 6 to 8 weeks, I'll stop taking cannabis just to let my body kind of reset. And people ask me, am I addicted to cannabis? The answer is no. But after I go on my holiday for about a day and a half, my neck taps my shoulder on this and says, hey,
wake up, I need my medicine.
You better do something pretty quick, or I'm going to let you know that I'm here, because it's not going to go away. Right. And so I'm not addicted to cannabis. What I'm addicted to is getting rid of the pain.
Pain relief.
Yeah. You have some comments on that, Jenny?
No, I was just saying pain relief. I mean, that's it. I mean, your body feels better on it. So it's, it's not that you're going through withdrawal or anything like that. It's just that you're feeling the pain. So you need something to help. It's,
And I have to tell you, I mean, my pain relief is down to less than a 1 on a constant basis from a level of 7 or an 8. You don't need a lot of coaching to be able to say I'm going to head in that particular direction, especially when I know it's safe compared to the alternatives. So Jenny, let's talk a little bit about cannabis as medicine. Tell me a little bit about, we talked about CBD and THC. What are they?
Okay, so the cannabis plant actually has many different components to it. So typically when we extract from the cannabis plant, we're typically extracting 2 cannabinoids. So that's CBD and THC. But the plant actually has over 100 different cannabinoids that, as we do more research, are finding that there are medicinal benefits to a lot of these other cannabinoids. But primarily right now, we look at CBD and THC. So CBD is the non-psychoactive cannabis component. So that's what you hear about. That's what you can, when you say, oh, you can buy it at the gas station or whatever. So there might be some confusion there, because they say, well, how come I can buy it in the gas station, but I can't go to Move and buy the CBD there? So there's actually hemp-derived CBD, and that is what's federally legal. And that is what was passed by the Farm Bill. So that makes hemp legal to be sold in any state. So therefore, anybody who wants to apply to have a hemp license can do so in the state of Florida, and then they can sell hemp CBD. But there's also the other form, the marijuana side of CBD, which does contain a little bit higher level of THC in it than the regulated amount. And therefore, that is why you cannot go into Move and just buy our CBD without a medical marijuana card. So speaking of from a therapeutic and medical side, CBD is typically known as the anti-inflammatory, the anti-anxiety. Yet normally people look at CBD for those 2 components, where THC, like Marc talked about earlier, was more for pain relief. But when you put them together, they actually work the best. So that's why
1 is 3 when you put them together.
There you go. So that's why a lot of times you'll see in dispensaries 1-to-1 products, because they just really work well together. And you also can get the THC without having the extreme psychoactivity, because you have the CBD that's counteracting it. So therefore, you're getting the anti-inflammatory from the CBD, and you're getting the pain relief from the THC. So you're getting both of those components together, which makes a great mix.
Right. That's out there. What's fascinating is that working together really is 1 and 1 is 3 that really work together. Now, what's interesting is when I got into business, literally 7, 8 years ago, all I heard about was sativa and indica, and there's a lot of talk about that. Why don't you tell me the difference between them, and then we'll talk about where we're going with hybrids.
Sure. So typically you hear sativa, people think of during the day. They think about being awake. They think about when you see the terpenes come into play here again. So when we talked about earlier, so think about when you smell a lemon, that's invigorating. A lot of sense when we go into the stores. It's, lemon is the refreshing, the wake up. So that you hear sativa. Sativas are the daytime. You'll hear, that associated with during the daytime. So when you're looking at the plant, they're taller in structure, narrower leaves. They're better for warm climates. And then on the other side, you have indica. Usually when you hear indica, you think couch. Indica is usually your nighttime remedy. So they're shorter in stature, broader leaves, different flowering cycles. But back in the day, this was kind of more, sativa, indica, but now with more growing and more dispensaries and more genetics, that most of the products out there nowadays are hybrids. And that actually is a good thing, because therefore you're getting kind of a combo of everything. So, you could get, well, I like, indicas, but you can get a hybrid that's indica leaning. So therefore you're getting all the other benefits, but that you do have a little bit higher of the indica to help you with the sleep. But being a hybrid is not a bad thing, and it's actually a very good thing. And that's the direction that we're moving, because as they cross 1,000,001 different, genes, as they say, with the cross-pollination, things like that, with the plant genetics, you've created this hybrid. And it's actually, as we revolutionize more and more and do more research, we're actually going to be able to probably create certain strains that are specific for certain ailments. And that's why the reporting and the strain print and thing like that is so important, because we're getting the information from the patient, so that therefore we can find out what works, what doesn't work, and help with our cultivation and growing things that help the patients.
And we've learned a lot about cannabinoids. I mean, again, there are very few pure sativas and indicas anymore. Everything's more of a hybrid that's really out there in the market, especially as they're taking a look. The medical cannabis dispensaries like yourself are looking at providing pain relief or relief for certain medical conditions. This is where it comes into play. And we've discovered a lot about terpenes. I mean, I think 10 years ago, there wasn't a lot of talk about terpenes. There was talk, but not as much as there is today. I think terpenes have become very, very important in being able to look at something to address your particular medical condition. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what I was talking about, just figuring out which terpenes and, whether it's hybrid, sativa leaning, indica leaning, and what things work the best for each ailment.
Yeah. The most important part about the whole thing, and this is if you're new, especially to cannabis, or even if you've been around for a long time, you're as somebody calls them, stoners. Your biology will tell you what works and what doesn't work. The best way to learn how to work and to work with medical cannabis is listen to your body. And I draw a lot of parallels to when I deal with people to alcohol. I mean, there are people who take one drink and they're done for the night. There's some people that drink the whole bottle and they're just getting started. I mean, I have friends who like light colored stuff, vodka and, gin, and there's people like dark colored stuff, bourbon and scotch. And some people like it with an umbrella in it, that's out there. Mm-hmm. You really got to find out what really works for you, what your tolerance is. That's out there, just like alcohol.
Start low, go slow.
Pardon?
Start low, go slow.
I wish they'd have told me that when I was a teenager, learning anything about alcohol, that's for sure. It would have avoided a lot of pain, let's put it that way.
Right.
But it really is true. I mean, it is something where once you understand your tolerance to THC and also your tolerance to CBD, because some people have some effects from that, you understand how it really will help your body. Once I dialed in and I knew my tolerance to THC, I was able to up my CBD, the amount of CBD that I use, and be able to really dial in the relief that I needed for my particular situation. I think that's what's important. We call that dosing, right? Yep. Go low and go slow is something that's really out there, but it's something that, and people say, well, how long does it take to do that? I typically was able to dial mine in about 2 weeks. Now, be careful, because I've heard the Parkinson patients can take, sometimes it can take as many as 3 months. That's out there. And again, it depends on how, I do it for a day or two, I try it, and I do a day or two and I try it. And it really depends on how you do that. But it isn't something that's complicated. It doesn't take forever, right. But it is something that I think you should pay attention to and follow.
And I think, when you're dealing specifically with stress and anxiety, I think that that's actually one of the ailments that people find relief quickly. that I don't think it's necessarily such a specific, product, that I think cannabis as a whole really has a really great effect for these two particular ailments.
Right. We had an interesting question that I think applies right now. We might want to answer. It's from Margarita, and she says sativa makes her heart race too. And she's talking about basically, she's talking about being a lifetime stoner, but she's also the sativa is getting her hearts to race, very similar to what you're doing. I think that's one of the things about not using recreational cannabis. You kind of don't know what's in the product, and if you do know, the question is, do you know what really helps you and doesn't help you? Medical cannabis is really dialing in the type of cannabis that works for you. And I'm not against recreational cannabis. I'm very much in favor of it. But I do think from a medical standpoint, knowing what's in your product and knowing how it affects your body
1,000%.
is really key to that. What do you think, Jenny?
No, 1,000%. Sometimes people talk about, recreational or not regulated cannabis, and knowing everything that I know now, there's no way that I would buy anything that wasn't from a dispensary. And that's not just because I work for a dispensary, but it really is the safest cannabis out there. We're regulated. They have to be lab tested. So, all of the stuff that we grow has to be grown under certain conditions. So, you're not getting it laced with anything, or, what they tell you the percentage is really the percentage, and, the terpene profile and things like that, exactly for a medical purpose, exactly what you're getting.
Sure. It's out there. So anyway, I think paying attention to your dosing, I think is really, really important. But I think also, if you take a look at cannabis has 450 medical properties, and this is both the THC and CBD, really working together. When you take a look at if you look at just the CBD products by themselves, if you isolated them and use it by themselves, there's only 108 medical properties with CBD. But when you combine CBD and THC together, you're getting over 450 different medical properties that are out there. You want to talk about a few of those, Jenny?
Yeah, sure. So as you can see here, there's this little wheel here, and I like that you guys are going to get the slides later so you can refer back to it. But, so like I said, there's over 100 different cannabinoids in cannabis, and each one they're finding to have different effects. So looking around the circle, so, you've got CBGA, CBC, CBCA, Delta 8, 9, Delta 9. There's a lot of talk about Delta 9, THCA, THCV. A lot of times the THCV and THCA, a lot of people are looking at suppressing appetite. So a lot of people, I get asked a lot, oh, which of your products have this specific cannabinoid, because they know that it helps with appetite suppression. So for example, CBCA helps with reducing inflammation. And it says Delta 9, THCA helps with sleep. So as you can see, there's different aspects.
Jenny, we lost you there for a second.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Nothing happened with my computer. Let me see if I can get back on.
You're good. It's interesting in that when you put the THC and the CBD together, like for example, if you look over here with Delta 8 and Delta 9, it talks about relieving pain. But you go over here and you look at the CBDA, for example, it also helps relieve pain. So by putting those together, the 1 and 1 is 3. You have a number of medical components working with your body to be able to take on that pain. And also that works for anxiety. For stress and anxiety, it works the same way. Those components working together really help bring the relief that you're looking at from that particular standpoint.
Thank you for taking over for me.
No problem. So let's talk about terpenes, because I think that we've talked about strains. We'll talk about a little bit more about indica and sativa as we go along, because we're going to talk about the strains in a moment. But terpenes play an important role, and I know the Moo folks have kind of isolated a few terpenes that really help in this particular category.
Yes. So we actually have a whole table that if anybody's interested in later on, you can reach out to me and I'll be more than happy to share that. That actually has all the different terpenes, but we've isolated these just for this specific topic. But for example, beta caryophyllene, that's one of the terpenes that you'll find in some of the strains that we carry at Move. And those effects, as you can see here, antidepressant, anti-anxiety, anti-inflammatory, muscle relief, spasms, and it's a little sedative. So, and then it shows you what the aromas are. So sometimes when you smell the cannabis, some people will say, oh, that smells really gassy, or that smells really peppery, or that smells really citrusy. That's because of the terpenes. So the ones with the beta-caryophyllene has these particular aromas. So peppery, spicy, woody, cloves, things like that. And then if you move over, so you're like, okay, well, what do I do with this knowledge? What does that mean to me? So now that you know that this specific terpene helps with those aspects, you can look over here at the specific strains to the right a little bit, the specific strains that we carry in the store that have those terpenes. So if you're looking, to treat any of those things, you can say, oh, okay, well, I know that the Velvet Glove has that terpene in it, so let me try that. So this is a really good tool to be able to kind of go through the list of all the strains. So when I say strains, I mean, when you look at a menu and if you're not familiar, the flower and different products come in different strains. And that's basically indica, sativa, hybrid. And as you can see, they're color coded there. The green's going to be a hybrid. The blue or purple, depending upon your computer, is going to be the indicas. And then the yellow is going to be your sativas.
And then when I first got into medical cannabis, it was from an auto accident. That's how I ended up with the herniated discs in my neck and my back. And when I talked to the bed tender behind the counter, and I basically said, med tender, I said, look, here's my particular condition. And they looked in my medical cannabis recommendation from my doctor. They came back and said, you should use these products. And, as you can see from the dispensary behind me, there's a lot of products that are out there. So, the first time I went, I just kind of took it and ran and used it and it worked. And I came back. And the second time I asked the magic question, how do you know that works? And they basically said, it's very simple. We looked at your particular condition that you're trying to address. We matched it to the right terpene profile. And then with that terpene profile, we then came back and matched it to the strains we needed out here to be able to get the job done that we need to get done. And it was interesting because at that time, it dawned on me, this is medicine. This is very much like medicine, where they're saying, here's the condition and here's the product that works for me. And it goes back to what Marilyn was bringing up earlier, being a lifetime stoner, she had elevated heart rates and quite enough was going on. This is where medical cannabis comes into play, because we know she should probably be leaning more towards indicas, for example. And also what kind of indicas should be dependent on the terpenes that she needs to look at. And this is where this comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you have limonene down here is another one, right?
Yes. So I spoke a little bit earlier about lemon and feeling invigorated. So limonene is one of the other terpenes that you can find in cannabis. And those basically have a lot of the similar effects above, but improves mood also, and it relieves nausea, So those are two other aspects that limonene can help with. So that's the citrusy flavor. So right there, you see all of the different strains that we carry that contain limonene.
Now you have another one over here that's recommended for anxiety and stress. Notice there's anxiety up here. It's terpene.
Yep. So there's exactly. And then you'll hear you see the aroma. You'll have floral, lilac, and lemon. So this is an interesting one. You kind of have them all combined into one. And then right over there, you'll see all of the other ones. So actually Lemon Lights is one, and Lemon Margie. Those are two of my favorite strains that we have. So I guess that makes sense.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah. But, for stress and anxiety, I know that when we did the seminars in person, a lot of people were, this was a real issue. And being able to find something that really helps you makes a big difference. And paying attention not only to the strain, but also paying attention to the terpene makes a big difference in being able to help you out, and be able to get what you need to do. It's out there.
Yep.
So let's talk strains for a second. There's a whole bunch of strains that we know really work for anxiety and stress. Do you want to talk about a few of these?
Sure. So actually one of my favorite strains, and I talk about this on a consistent basis with many of my patients and doctors, is ACDC. So ACDC is a high CBD strain. So this is not going to give you the psychoactivity as any other typical strain. This is going to be a CBD high strain. And as you see over there, it's high in myrcene, pinene, and caryophyllene. So those are the terpenes there that's high. And then, so you'll see in the comments, so I really find that ACDC is one of the best strains for stress and anxiety. Because of the CBD, it really just brings down, it brings your body down, calms your body down, and you don't have the psychoactivity. So it's something that can be used during the daytime. If anybody's worried, well, how do I how do I function? How do I do my day-to-day basis if I'm going to be medicated? ACDC is a great option for that because you're not going to get the psychoactivity. And we'll talk a little bit later about specific products. But my particular favorite product that we carry at Move is the ACDC RSO tincture. And I'll get into why later on. But and then a couple of the other ones I'm going to skip around just because. So Jack Herrera is one of the other ones, and that's going to be a THC dominant one. So remember that some of these strains is not only you can find in flower, but you can also find in other products like tinctures or vapes. So don't get stuck that thinking you only can do flower for any of these things. There are other products out there where you'll be able to find strains like this.
And Jack Herrera has an interesting characteristic in that even though it's THC dominant, it really helps a lot with anxiety and stress. I know that's one of the recommended strains for anxiety and stress that's out there by a lot of people.
Yeah. And Canasu is another one because that one has a balance between THC and CBD. So a lot of people like that one as well because it's, again, that, one-to-one aspect that I was talking about earlier. So you're getting both the CBD and the THC. And then
there's a number there's also some here that are out there that are very popular.
Yes, so very popular is Purple Urkel is one of them, Remini, Sour Diesel. So Sour Diesel is an interesting one because Sour Diesel is one of the old school strains that you'll have that people know about. They like a lot of diesel. They like the gassy, smell, taste. I personally am not a big fan of the diesels, but a lot of people really do care for them. And they do help a lot of times. As you can see, a lot cerebral effects with the Sour Diesel.
And a lot of people start with the CBD dominant strains, the remedies, that type of thing. Although I know that OG Kush is a very popular one. OG Kush is really great for stress relief. And
yes.
I know, in talking to a lot of cannabis, let's say cannabis experts, and we talk off the cuff about what's really good for certain things. OG Kush is really one of those popular strains for stress relief.
OG Kush is a fan favorite. We have a couple of different varieties of OG Kush, and actually recently released on the Dart, which is one of our vapes. We have a 1-to-1 OG Kush, which is becoming a fan favorite because you get the OG Kush and the terpenes of the OG Kush, but then you also get the 1-to-1 aspect, adding in some CBD to it. So that's a really, really great one.
Right. Yeah, and I noticed that, I've learned over my cannabis experience to add more CBD to my dosing, my regime. It's really helped me quite a bit in reducing not only the pain but also the anxiety and the stress that's really out there. And again, the last year and a half, 2 years have caused everybody's anxiety level to go up a whole pack.
100%.
Well, there's different dosing forms. I mean, you were talking about earlier. Not everybody's going to sit on the couch and be trying a joint. When I first got into this, I thought, we're not all going to be sitting on porches doing this. We've come a long way in the last 10 years about how to.
A very long way. A very long way. I think one of the things that people get most surprised about when becoming a cannabis patient, but also Move particularly because we have a very large product line, is, as you can see here, it's not just smokable. There's different forms and there's different routes of delivery. So as you can see, there's everything from sublingual drops, which is the tincture under your tongue. There's the inhalation vapes. So that's what you're known, the vapes. We have a couple different options. As you can see, we have a disposable one, which is a nice little 300 milligram one that once you use it, you throw it away. And then we have the Dart I was talking about earlier that has a lot of big clouds if those who are interested in that. And then the other ones are the Pures, which are the normal 510 threads, 500 milligram carts. And then also we have capsules. So that's going to be THC capsules as well as RSO capsules. Our capsules actually have an encapsulated technology in it, so it actually works quicker in your body than typical capsules or anything taken orally. So you're going to get relief in about 15 to 20 minutes with the Move capsules. There's also topicals, which is obviously creams and lotions and things like that you put on top. Meter dose inhaler. So that is exclusive to Move actually here in Florida. So that's at the bottom. It's like an asthma inhaler, but it's cannabis. So that one comes in 1-to-1 as well as THC.
And a lot of people use it not just because it's a meter dose inhaler, but they use it because it helps them meter. And so it helps them be able to know that what they're taking and helps them be able to get their regime, to get the they know exactly what to take and how much works for them. Let's put it that way.
Right, right. And then we do have something else called an oral spray, which I always compare it to like the old Banaka. It's just a little bottle like this, and you're good to go. As well as edibles. We have the chews, and we have lozenges, and we have chocolates. And then as well, we have, of course, we have premium flour, 3 different tiers of flour based upon the bud size. And then we have concentrates. So that's for your macro dosing. That's going to be shatter, crumble, rosin, butter, things like that. And that's, you're thinking of those who need the higher potency of THC.
You've left off commenting about my favorite product, which is your
patches.
Patch. I love your patch. It's great.
Oh yes, that's part of the topicals. Yes, so our patches are great. They're 3-day transdermal patches, and they're really great. You know, I have a lot of patients with stress and anxiety who wear the one-to-one on a day-to-day basis, and they feel like that really helps them a lot.
Yeah, and here's a little bit of a guide. I know, you know, each of these different dosing forms have what they call an onset. So I'll use my friend the patch here for a second. You know, it takes between 10 minutes to an hour to work. In my case, it works within 10 minutes, and it'll last anywhere from 8 to 72 hours. In fact, sometimes your patch will last even 96 hours. I know you only certify it for 72,
right?
But the transdermal. So this is, each of them has their different, you know, how long does it take to work, and how long does it work? Transdermal patches are unique in that you can take them off, and so within 30 minutes, you know, that it's out of your blood system. So if you try a THC patch and you're getting that euphoric effect, you can actually take it off and relieve it. It's the only form of dosing that you can reverse. Let's put it that way. Easily. It's a
great way to put it. This is a great tool for patients to use. I love that, because a lot of people say, well, I don't want to wait. What's the quickest way? You know, inhalation is going to be your quickest way for relief, as well as, so because of our Move has a technology, so encapsulation technology, which makes the absorption times a little bit quicker. So some of our tinctures, for example, like you were talking about, 10 to 15 minute onset time, where normal tinctures might take anywhere from, you know, 60 minutes to 90 minutes, just depends.
And then also you can mix and match. I know that, like I've been mentioned, with my herniated disc in my neck, when I wake up in the morning, I have on my nightstand, I have tincture drops, which I take. And in my case, it takes about 20 to 25 minutes for them to work. But then I also have a vape pen, because I don't feel like when I wake up in the morning in a level of pain of about a 7 or an 8, I really don't want to go through 20 minutes of a 7 and an 8 pain. And I literally grab my vape pen and take 1 or 2 hits off the vape pen, and the pain goes away literally within a minute or 2. And I know the first time I did that, it was recommended to me. And the first time I did it, I said to my wife, this is crazy. I had no idea that it worked that effectively and that fast. It was like somebody took a rag and wiped my back and the pain went away.
Oh,
here I am 5 years later. And even when I did it this morning, I still am amazed on how fast the vape pens work. Let me put it that way. It's really, so you can mix and match these. It's called a regime. You know how long it's going to take to start working. You know how long it works. For my particular case, I have a regime in the morning, because even though I'm using the tincture drops, they last 4 to 6 hours. If I don't do something in the middle of the afternoon, I'll have pain later in the day. So I do something right after lunch in the middle of the afternoon. Then I do something just before bed to be able to do that, because my pain isn't going to go away. My herniated discs are not going to go away. So I just have a regime that's out there. And before I go to bed, I actually go to the edibles that are over here. And I'm going to throw a shameless plug in for your chocolates. I grab some Move chocolates before I go to bed. It's my nighttime regime. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
End your night with a chocolate on your pillow.
Yeah, well, more than in a pillow, I'll tell you. But about an hour before I go to bed, I try that. I pick up one of those, and it's really helped me sleep through the night, because I was waking up in the middle of the night in pain, and this gives me that 8 to 10 hours that I need of pain relief that's there, and it helps me quite a bit.
So, dealing with, for example, anxiety, if I know, for me personally, if I know that I'm starting to feel a little anxious or whatnot, my go-to is my vape, just because it's the fastest acting. But at night, to kind of, ease my mind and settle my mind, and, so I can rest peacefully. I love the RSO tincture. I really do. And I'll talk about it later, but, it doesn't have the encapsulation, so it does take a little bit longer to kick in, but once it kicks in, I'm out. So that really works well for me to allow my mind to calm down.
Sure. So let's talk a little bit about dosing, because I think that's really the heart of this whole matter. I know that people have tried cannabis and said it doesn't work, and I know that in the case of my wife, we started having her use it for anxiety and stress, and after about a day or two, she said it didn't work. She expected you to take 2 pills and call me in the morning, kind of thing, and it really wasn't that way. And I said, "Gee, honey, we need to kind of do some experimenting with the dosing," and we did. We kicked up a little bit of THC, we kicked up a little bit of CBD. We ended up finding out, believe it or not, a 9-to-1, 12-to-1, or 20-to-1 helps her quite a bit with her anxiety and stress. And that's something that she's very, very tolerant. She's very, very, THC really is something she's very sensitive to. So once we got her into the 10-to-1s and the 12-to-1s, and what I love about the Move product line is I can buy a CBD, I can buy a 1-to-1, and I can buy a THC, and I can do my own mixing and matching. I don't have to turn over a bunch of products to be able to do that. I can just put more CBD and THC together and be able to do my dosing, which is really great. But I think, again, I'm going to go back to that analogy to alcohol. It does take something. You got to find out whether you like the light stuff or the dark stuff. Got to find out if you like an umbrella in it or not. But it's not going to take you forever. And by the way, go low and go slow, and it'll get you there. It doesn't take forever, but it does really help you be able to, once you dial it in, you will get your life back. Let me put it to you that way.
That's why I always throw out there about strain print, just because, there's a bunch of different dispensaries, there's a bunch of different products, and sometimes it's hard to remember, what it is that you bought and what worked. So if you can keep some sort of track or journal, if you don't want to use, the iPhone, you just want to do it, on your own, you can do that as well. But I do advise that, just because, you really want to find the sweet spot. So you want to be able to remember how, different medication worked for you or didn't work.
Right, exactly. That's out there. So so over here. So what's the bottom line on this whole thing? First of all, if you're in control, that's what's most important about the whole thing about medical cannabis, is you're in control. When you go to the doctor, you get the pharma drugs, you're kind of relying on somebody to give you what's out there. And if it doesn't work, you got to go back and talk to them 5 times, literally sometimes. But you're in control of what works for you and doesn't work for you. But more importantly, you can actually try things. You can go low and go slow. You're not going to get addicted. You're not going to overdose from it. Nobody's going to ever die from it. And by the way, you may find the entourage effect. It's amazing how many times I have a friend of mine who was using it for pain and pain relief, a real good friend of mine. And he said, not only am I getting pain relief, but for the first time in 20 years, I was able to sleep through the night.
It's amazing.
And your body knows what it needs. It helps be able to provide the endocannabinoids in that particular area and helps them get sleep, which I find very fascinating. So, cool. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about Move. I mean, we've talked a lot about generalities about what could happen. Let's talk about what you guys actually have that can actually help people get better or help with anxiety and stress.
Absolutely. So as you can see here, I did kind of hit on most of those, but these are all of the options of products that you can get. So we talked about the topicals, the edibles, the tinctures, capsules, the oral spray, and then the transdermals, both the patch and the transdermal gel. So we do have a topical pain relief cream and a sports gel, but then we also have a transdermal gel, which is actually not spot specific, but you put on any venous area and it gets into your body, making it fully systemic. And then we also have, of course, vaping and the meter dose inhaler and concentrates in flower.
Sure. Now, you also have strain. You also have this is what you call your encapsulated technology. This is where the product goes literally directly into the bloodstream. And by the way, not just for topicals, it also works for your gels. It also works for not only just for your gels, but also works for your capsules
and the patches.
For a lot of your products that you have.
Exactly. So as you can see here, there's a little visual here. So typically cannabis does not want to penetrate into your skin. It is not water soluble. And if you put anything on, typically topically, it's just going to stay there on your skin. But with our technology, we've actually been able to break down the THC particles, making them into smaller elements, encapsulating them and actually making them water soluble. So therefore creating a barrier, allowing the cannabis to get into the bloodstream and giving you full body effect, just like taking, a Tylenol or an Advil or something like that, where you're getting full body relief.
And it works much. The nice part about it is this particular technology, when it goes into your stomach, it helps your body absorb the product much easier than not having it.
Correct.
And that's why it works.
It allows it to pass through without getting broken down.
And of course, you have flour.
Of course. So we have premium flour. We have, like I said earlier, we have 3 tiers that are based upon the bud size. So we've got a tier 1, which are going to be your biggest size buds, and then your medium size buds, tier 2, and then you're going to have like your popcorn size, which is going to be your tier 3. And then we also just released a new reserve flour. I don't know if you've heard of this, Mark, or if you saw the news, but that's actually going to be above our tier 1, and it's the prettiest flour that we have ever grown. It is extremely crystally. This was the Mac 1 we just released. We are going to be releasing a whole bunch of different strains, so definitely keep an eye open for that, and make sure that when it does drop that you grab it, because it flew off the shelves.
Yeah, I think an important comment is a lot of people see flour as something that smokes, and some people don't smoke it. But I use flour. I cook with it. Best way of putting it. I actually make my own tincture oils for my particular condition because I'm addressing inflammation and pain. And I make your own gummies and integrate it in the food. It makes it a lot easier for people to take it, type of thing. I heard a crazy statistic, which I'm not sure is true, but I've heard that something like 30% of the flour in Florida is being used for cooking, which I don't know how they got that number. I don't know how they found it.
Interesting. But, interesting. I don't know that stat, but that's an interesting statistic.
But I've talked to a lot of people that are buying flour for cooking, so we'll see how that works out. We are going to have a cooking webinar next quarter. So
I was just talking about this. If you vaporize flour, if you have a vaporizer, Volcano, or they sell the mini ones, you can vaporize your flour, and actually it decarbs the flour, and then you can cook with it. So it actually is a double purpose. So I love that aspect also.
Sure. Let's talk about, I'm not going to, there's a lot of data that's here. I think this is more for the follow-up, but this is all the information from Strain Print on your flour products, which is really
exactly great. So this is a little bit of the data we were talking about earlier, just so you guys can refer back and say, hey, I'm going to go into Move, which strains will help me. So this here, strawberry cough, slurricane. Slurricane is one of my favorites. It's an indica as well. So it'll show here the efficacy at the bottom. So if you're looking for anxiety, the strawberry cough was 56% efficacious. And then for slurricane, we have 69% for irritability, which me having kids, I always need that factor. And then for anxiety and stress, you've got 59 and 58%. So both pretty good. Yep.
And again, this has to do with people giving you comments. It may not work for you, but this is what you find. Generally, this is the direction that you're heading. So if you head in that direction, you'll be finding some relief in that particular spot here. Edibles, which are always fun. I think edibles are great. I love edibles. It just, as when we did our edible webinar, I basically used the comment, be very, very careful.
Well, hunting rabbits.
You got it, man. Just be cool, baby. So tell me about edibles, Jenny.
So edibles, welcome them here in Florida. Everybody was super excited for them. So we actually have a contract with Wana Brands, which is one of the #1 companies out of the West Coast. And they are some of the best edibles in the state for numerous reasons. So edibles in general, they're usually taken for things like insomnia, body relief, but actually a lot for anxiety and stress as well. So, it's a different aspect when you take edibles as opposed to smoking, because the way that it digests in your body and it passes through the liver and it converts to to 11-hydroxy THC. So, it's a different reaction in your body, and therefore, we also have to wait, like Marc was talking about. So it's not an immediate effect. So that does take some time for it to break down in your body. I also will say, if you are going to be doing edibles, it is actually better to have a full stomach. You would maybe think differently, like with alcohol, it has more of an effect when you have an empty stomach. But with edibles, you actually get more of an effect when you have something fatty for it to absorb onto. Sure. And for the Wana brand specifically, so these actually reintroduce 40 to 50 terpenes back into the edibles. I think the other ones on the market reintroduce maybe 4 to 5 different terpenes, but 40 to 50 terpenes back into them make them truly medicinal, and that's why they're so effective.
When I was researching edibles, I was really shocked at how the quality of the terpene quality of the
Yeah.
one product line. I think terpenes are a very important part of the whole cannabis and the medical experience. And I think you guys really have nailed it with respect to bringing the terpenes back into those products.
Thank you. Thank you. So they offer indica sativa hybrid, and we also have a 1-to-1 option, which is a fan favorite.
Yeah. And then, of course, here's a number of options that people have that are out there.
So these are specific to the edibles. These are the wanna choose. We have mango, which is sativa, and then we've got the blueberry, that's indica. So the strain print data is showing that these two specifically are helping with anxiety, stress, and irritability.
Right. Let's move on to your vapes. I think you just brought out the new vape, the cartridge here. I was a big fan of your G Pen. I guess the G Pen is out, right?
The G Pen is out. The G Pen was out. It was not performing the way that we had expectations for it to perform. So we moved over to the Dart, which is a much better product. So the Dart is like its own self-contained battery, as you can see there, and it's just a pod system. So you'll just be buying like the green top, you'll just be buying the pods, and that comes in sativa hybrid and indica as well. And then I think I spoke earlier about the 300 milligram disposable one. I love that one because it allows new patients to be able to try different strains without having to fully commit. It's only 300 milligrams. So, if you're just wanting to try out, see if it works, that's a great option. And then once you know which ones you like, we have the Pure and the Pure Pluses, which are very clean. All of the Move vapes are solventless, making them so they're not harsh on your throat. And of course, it's the fastest acting way to get your relief, and many, many, many different options of different strains to choose from there, from indicas, sativas, and hybrids.
It's my morning partner. I have to tell you, it helps me quite a bit, and it works. It just absolutely
works.
It
does.
And here's some of the data on it.
So these are for the vape.
Interesting about this Maui Wowie part, right?
Yes. So I was just saying that THCV actually is in Maui Wowie, and THCA, which is what we were talking about earlier, helping with appetite suppressant. So a lot of people ask about that. So Maui Wowie is the one to go for that. And then also it helps with stress, anxiety, and irritability. So you get a 2-for-1 with that one. So that's going to be the Pure. That's going to be your 510 thread there for the Maui Wowie. And then also on the other side, we've got the Cannabis, which is one of the strains we talked about earlier, and that's going to be your 1-to-1 balanced blend vape.
Sure. Great. And then your concentrates naturally. Now, concentrates are more for people that are kind of use cannabis for a while.
Right. So this is not for newbies. This is not for newbies. Right. So this is what concentrates basically are. It's just a heavily concentrated THC. So typically, if you look at flower, I mean, you're in the percentages, you're looking at, 12% it goes all the way up to 30-35% in flower. In concentrate, you're up in the 60, 70, 80% concentrate of THC. Right. So this is for the patients that have experience, for those that are, in severe pain, severe insomnia, chemotherapy, things like that. These are the macro doses. And I
tend to use the concentrates like in the evenings, like, after 7, 8 o'clock at night.
Right.
Again,
so
with my pain relief is really the important part, but I also want to be able to match that with something that helps me take down the inflammation. And I think the nice part about it is with concentrates, again, I've been using this for a while, I've been doing this for a while, but the thing is, it's very cost effective as well.
You can, and one of the things that patients have learned to do is sometimes they'll incorporate some of the concentrate into their flower. So if they're rolling a joint or just putting on top of their bowl, they could sprinkle some shatter, or they can use some of the distillate in their pre-roll or on their bowl, and it can add a little bit of an additional medicated effect.
Sure. Good to hear. Transdermal patches, my friend, my favorite. Tell me.
I feel like you always do my job with this. You're such a good promoter of it.
It just works. I mean, I played a golf tournament yesterday, and I didn't have time to run around and do my oils and things during the day. So I'm able to put on a transdermal patch and carry a vape pen with me, and my life is good. Right.
Yes. So, I mean, this is using our encapsulated technology, and I know that there's other patches on the market, but with the encapsulated technology, the difference between these patches and other patches is because of the encapsulation. It only allows for the medication to get into your body, into your bloodstream. Where if you have a carrier in the stick and the other patches, it can carry whatever else is in from the outside in. So that's why these are a little bit, you're only getting the cannabis that's pulled in.
And your Evolve gel works pretty well in that as well.
Yep. So the Evolve gel is similar to the patch, but it's not a 72-hour. It's just immediate. So it's a transdermal gel that you'll put on any venous area, and it works systemically. So it's a really great option for the pain relief or anti-inflammatory effects using the Evolve gel.
Exactly. You mentioned RSO oil, and I'm a huge fan of RSO.
Yes.
For a number of different reasons.
So real quick, if you're unfamiliar with RSO, RSO stands for Rick Simpson oil. So Rick Simpson is actually a gentleman who suffered from multiple diagnoses of cancer. And he came up with this regimen of using full cannabis extract. So what I was talking about earlier is normally from the plant, you're only extracting 2 of the cannabinoids, THC and CBD. But like I said, they have over 100 different cannabinoids in the plant, which are showing to have medicinal benefits. So RSO is full extract. We don't leave anything out of the plant. It's everything goes in. So it truly, in my opinion, is the most medicinal product, cannabis product out there. My mom, who was diagnosed with cancer a few years ago, she's okay now, thank God, knock on wood. But I tell her, because there's been a lot of research that has shown that RSO can help reduce cancer as well as prevent it from coming back. So I said to my mom, even if there's the slightest chance that it works, take it. So, go ahead.
I can't make general claims or whatever, but I do know that 4 years ago, my mother was diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer to be specific. And, obviously the doctors wanted to do, mastectomies and that type of thing. And I said, Mom, at your age, at 88, we're not going to play that game.
Yeah.
And so I put her on a heavy regime of RSO, of which the doctor was sure I was going to kill her, and ended up doing a lot of CAT scans for about 2 months, to the point where when the tumor was being reduced and actually went away, I shouldn't say went away, it's in remission. He was saying to me, what's going on here? And in her case, it's 4 years later. Okay. And my mom still is in remission. Now she has other issues. She's 93 years old at this point in time. But she clearly has RSO has basically saved my mother's life. That's way of putting it.
It's amazing.
It extended her life. Let's put it that way.
Well, that's great. Any potential, extension of life is amazing. So, so the thing about RSO is that it's very sedative. So normally you get it in a syringe, and it's this thick consistency. It's not the most pleasant tasting, and you eat it, and it's very sedative. Mm-hmm. So a lot of patients, are timid or scared to try it, but Move created this product, which is my favorite product, the RSO tincture. So it's allowed for a microdose way to take RSO. So it doesn't have that nasty taste of RSO. It's actually a very subtle, pleasant taste, and you get the full cannabis extract medicinal benefit without getting the extreme psychoactivity from the typical RSO. So even if you just needed to take a quarter of a dropper of the tincture, you're still getting all of the cannabinoids.
Yeah. I mean, the original RSO oil was made by Rick Simpson. If he had melanoma, he was putting it on his skin. Hence why they were using they had the little syringe thing. You put just like a grain size, a rice size grain on the skin and rub it in. And it does have, it is thicker, but being able to now put it into a tincture, that's the way to go, in my opinion.
And I particularly want to bring back what I was talking about earlier. So the RSO tincture is strain specific. So therefore, if you find that you like slurricane at night, you can go in and get a slurricane RSO tincture. But one that I want to highlight is the ACDC RSO tincture. So that's your high CBD strain that I was talking about earlier in the RSO tincture. And I find that the ACDC RSO tincture to be one of the best remedies for stress and anxiety, because you can use it during the day, but it doesn't give you the psychoactivity.
Sure. That's great. I love RSO stuff.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit now about your capsules. This is where, again, the encapsulated technology helps you take it and it works much quicker.
Yes. So I feel like we've talked about this a little bit. So if this is an easy dose option, if you don't want to smoke, and it lasts longer than inhalation as well. And this can be, customized, as Marc was talking about earlier. Some dispensaries do ratios. We don't do ratios. So here at Move, you can buy THC tincture, you can buy CBD tincture, and you can mix and match however you see fit. If you need a little bit less THC in the daytime and a little more at night, you have the ability to do that without having to buy a million different products.
Yeah, and I think that's a great option. It's
really
great.
Thank you. And then because of the encapsulation, it actually makes the tincture water soluble. So if you wanted to put the tincture into water or juice or anything like that, you can do that as well.
Sure. And here's some of the results from some of the.
So there's the strain print data on the RSO end caps and then the THC end caps. So for the RSO, you're going to get 52%, and then for anxiety, and then the THC end caps, you get 55% efficacy for the anxiety.
Anything over 50% is good. That's
Yep.
For sure. So you have a number of locations. We got this one updated from our practice session. You have 38 locations now, which is just amazing. And
We
you're
do
opening
have
up
38.
2 a month, aren't you?
Yeah, it seems like that. It seems like that. It's funny because, I'm coming up on 3 years here, and I came on board when we were opening up the number 4 store, which is Wellington, and now we're at 38. So it's just amazing. Our next ones coming up is we have Melbourne. Oh, there you go. I think the next one up is Melbourne, and then we're getting Stewart and Hollywood, and as you can see, Brandon and Orange Park as well, and then many more after that. But I will tell you that the Stewart and Hollywood location will have drive-throughs, so that's exciting.
Oh, really?
Yes,
you have a drive-through location here in Orlando, which I think is great.
Yeah, it's so convenient. It really is.
Yeah, which I think is great. So also, when talk about reaching you, you have something that I'll let you talk a little bit about the phone and the email.
Sure.
But I love your live chat. I think a lot of people don't realize they can contact you. They can set up like a telemedicine chat session where for free, and this is free. We'll walk through their recommendation. You'll walk through what they can do. In fact, you don't have to be a medical marijuana patient or have a card. You'll be able to set that up, and they'll walk you through cannabis, right?
Correct. One of the things that at Moo, we really, really strive for patient care and patient experience. We want to make sure that everybody, feels comfortable with their medication, understands what they're getting, how to use it, and can feel comfortable coming back if something didn't work. Not all dispensaries are like that, and it's very important to us. So we've given, lots of options here on how to contact and reach us. We have a really large patient care team that's just waiting to help our patients out. So definitely utilize that. I also will say our website, we're working really, really hard to make the website be as educational as possible and user-friendly as possible. So if you get a chance, go onto the website. You can do online shopping from there and do express orders. We offer delivery, $120 minimum for free delivery, as well as what Marc was saying, the one-on-one free virtual consultations as well. We also have a really good blog writer, and she writes some really good content about cannabis, about our products, about the program in Florida, just general information that might be of interest to you. So definitely when you have a spare moment, definitely sign up for that, as well as if you're interested in promos, like Marc was talking about, there is on the website a form to fill out, and that's how you're going to get the email notifications of all of our promos, all of our new locations that are opening, and any new products that we drop.
Highly recommend getting on the email chain. I know people don't like a lot of text messages, but you got some great deals going on, and
yes.
Everybody wants that discount, that deal, and this is the 100%. Best way of finding it.
Yeah, and then obviously, I don't think there's a slide, but make sure that when you go to your doctor to renew your card, that you do ask for a physician referral card. That is going to be 3 separate discounts that you're going to get from Move, and every 7 months you can get those 3 discounts again. So all new patients get 25% off, but these are going to be 3 separate discounts that you will get as well.
That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So, Jenni, let's take some time and answer some of the questions. I know we've got some questions coming up here. Let's start with the first one. Jenny asked the question, can I be denied work if I have a medical marijuana card? What are the laws for the workplace? Do you want to take that one?
Sure. And that's a
I'll
tough
take it
one.
if you want me
No,
to.
no, that's okay. That's a tough one. Unfortunately, in Florida, there are no rules that are protecting you from workplaces. So unfortunately, each specific workplace can make their own rules and regulations on how they see fit. So that'll be based upon your company. There's some work that needs to be done in Florida and federally as well to get some employee protection. But unfortunately, right now, there's not.
From a regulation standpoint, the answer is it's kind of there isn't, and that's something that needs to be done from federal and state level. I do know that I'm from California. When I first came here, everybody asked me, "Is there any rules in California?" And I said, "I'll tell you what the general rule is." I came from Silicon Valley. They don't do any testing for cannabis. If they tested for cannabis, we wouldn't have any programmers. There wouldn't be any Facebook. There wouldn't be any Twitter. There wouldn't be any of that, because everybody was on on cannabis one way, shape, and form. And I know there's a lot of places that I've worked that a lot of the employees, did use cannabis for a number of reasons, mainly for medical reasons that are out there. So it really depends on the employers. And what you're finding is there's a tremendous trend towards employers that are coming out and saying, we're not going to enforce this. Amazon, for example.
Amazon, exactly. That was a big one recently.
What I'm finding out is there's a lot of banks that are secretly going to their employees and say, we're not going to be testing, which I find amazing, being bankers. But there's a lot more places that are standing up saying, we're not going to be enforcing this. It really depends on what's out there. So the technical answer is yes, you can be denied. Reality is there's so much pressure being put on people that if you want to find good employees, you probably aren't going to be testing for cannabis, is the best way of putting it. And so we'll see. Of course, there are a lot of archaic employers, and you just have to kind of deal with those. So we'll find out what's out there. And it's almost self-regulating. If you have an employer that's tolerant towards cannabis, he probably is going to be tolerant towards a lot of other things and make it a better workplace. Is the best way of putting it. So I know it's hard for somebody looking for work because you're always looking for work, but it really can be something that really helps you out quite a bit. There's an anonymous question. It says, does the elevated heart rate go away? I have a higher heart rate since starting about a week, and I've been very concerned. I've been following the dosage guidelines. Do you want to chat about that one? Because that might be something related to the sativa indica question too.
So I'm not sure that if I'm completely understanding. So the elevated heart rate started after the use of cannabis?
It doesn't say, that's the question doesn't say that, but.
Okay. The only thing, if that's the case, if it's started after cannabis, I would just say maybe lower your dose. Maybe your dose is too high and it's causing, your heart to elevate. And also maybe it might be the strain. I don't know exactly what product. If it's sativa leaning, that might be an issue. You might want to just change up what strain, and whether it's a hybrid or indica leaning, and see if that helps.
Yeah, a lot of sativa leaning products tend to have that particular characteristic. So take a look at trying a little more indica and see if, again, this goes back to your dosing guide. Try some things, find out what works and what doesn't work. You'll be able to dial that in. And I think you're right. You don't want to have an elevated heart rate. You definitely want to be in your comfort zone in that particular space that's out there. Larry brought up a question. He said, I bought cart at a DC dispensary that is a 2-to-1. They had it in several strains and hybrid. Is anyone in Florida marketing a 2-to-1 product? And is there a way better? Is it way better than the 1-to-1? Is a 2-to-1 better than a 1-to-1? I guess the best way of putting it. You want to take that one?
Sure. I mean, that's your body type, and what works best for your body. Everyone's different. Again, we at Move don't do ratios just because, like I said, you can self-titrate. So if that 2-to-1 worked for you, I mean, you definitely can get that by going to Move and getting the THC and the CBD tincture. And that way you can get your, 2 drops to 1 drop and mix and match however you'd like. If that's what you found to be your secret sauce, then stick with that.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I like Move, because there isn't, everybody has 4-to-1, 8-to-1, the whatever to whatever's, right? You can find out, and you can do yourself. You can try it yourself. You can find out how much CBD you really is good for you. You can find out how much THC is good for you. You can really dial it in. That's what I like about Move. You're not worried about being locked into a product and spending the money, and then you're kind of stuck with that particular product.
Right.
It's out there. So 2-to-1 works, Larry. Please do it. I'm not familiar with anybody who sells a 2-to-1 cartridge.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard of that.
Yeah. So really, Move is your alternative. There you go. That's why you do that. So as an anonymous question, it says, does Move have What product does Move have that suppresses appetite? That's right in your wheelhouse. Yeah,
That's the Maui Wowie. Yeah.
yeah, the Maui Wowie product. I have to try that. I'm always worried about my weight, so that's something that's really out there. See, there's a question here on let's see, is there a specific strains that can help with anxiety associated with autism?
I mean, that's a tough one. Are we talking, a child? Are you talking an adult? I would typically, when I hear autism, high CBD, I think from my experience has done wonders. So that ACDC RSO might be a really good option for you for that.
Right, and that also helps with anxiety and stress. I know that really what you want to do is you want to really pay attention to the autism, and then what'll happen is get a strain that works with anxiety and stress, like the ACDC, that would really work in that particular space. But also pay attention to whether you're working with a child or if it's something that's an adult, because that has to do with your dosing as well. And That's really key. That's one of those questions that you can really, but you can dial it in. The nice part about it is you can dial it in and really help in that particular space that's out there.
The patches might be good as well, the CBD patches for that.
Right. Lee asked a question. Lee asked a question, says, senior shame and cannabis hemp use. He asked us to speak about that issue. Is it being addressed here in the United States? I find that interesting.
What do you mean by senior shame and hemp use?
I find it interesting. I don't know about, he's from California, and my family's from California, and I visit California quite a bit. I'm finding that I don't find that much senior shame at all. In fact, if anything, when I came into my community, I moved into a seniors community about 4.5 years ago. And when people asked me what I did, and I told them I was in medical cannabis, you'd have thought Darth Vader arrived. I mean, everybody was like, "Oh, whoa, what's going on?" Then I did a couple medical marijuana seminars in the local area. And I think right now in my community, last time we checked, there were 188 people that are taking medical cannabis from those seminars, just to give you an idea. I have the opposite problem now. If I go into a grocery store or if I go into the clubhouse, I get hit with questions constantly. So I think the concept of shame has kind of gone away.
I think the stigma, I mean, that's what we're doing here, right? I mean, that's what we're doing. We're trying to change the stigma. We're trying to educate. And, I think a lot of information from back in the 80s and 90s that were, kind of fed to everybody had us all, perceiving marijuana in a certain way. So, day to day, we're all trying to, change that and show all the positive things that cannabis is doing. And a large majority of our patients are actually seniors. So I really don't think there's senior shame anymore.
Tell you what's got rid of senior shame, that is when it's word of mouth. When one senior talks to another one and said, I tried CBD, or I tried this, or I tried that, and it really worked. It's made a big difference.
I have a funny story, because when we all grew up, it was a big stigma, and nobody can if you're gonna smoke pot, you got to go in the corner, a mile away, and everyone's hiding and whatnot, and you don't want to get caught by your parents and all that stuff. And now that I'm an adult, I actually have now smoked cannabis with my mother. Who would have thought? So it all comes around full circle.
You're right. I know when I was growing up as a kid, marijuana was bad. Don't touch it. Mom and dad were like,
Right.
What's fascinating is when I was out in California last time, I have a little thing where I put a little pea-sized drop of cannabis in the coffee. And what it does is it heats up it heats up in the coffee, and it produces THCA and CBDA, which is good for inflammation and stress, but it's not so high that it doesn't trigger THC or CBD. Okay, so you can't get high. You can't get high off it. And I put some in my mom's coffee, and it worked great. And so now we're drinking coffee in the morning with a little CBD cannabis in it. And I sat around and I said, Mom, do you realize?
Who would have thought?
If I'd have told you 50 years ago that we were doing this, you'd have thrown me out of the house. And the corollary to that is I'm driving home last night, and I get a call from my mom, and she's got her friend, and her friend now is into cannabis. She's got her cannabis questions and wants to ask me. Yeah. I said, Mom, this has really turned around.
I know, right?
You used to buy me tie-dye. You wanted to buy me. I never used cannabis as a kid, but you talk about buying me tie-dyed shirts. I know what I'm going to get you for Christmas. They help you out quite a bit. But I think the senior shame thing has really gone the opposite direction. I think a lot of it has to do with word of mouth. seniors are talking about it. And there's an article in the Orlando Sentinel today about seniors and their use of cannabis, about how popular it's become.
Yep.
Which I find very interesting. So cool. Well, I think we've kind of gone through Sue made a comment that she's 68 and she's using gummies. So she's no more smoking. That's really what I found in a lot of different cases, that people really have gone to more of the edibles than they've gone to.
I agree. A lot of people who don't want to deal with the smoking, whether it's health issue or there's kids around or whatnot, and they just really rely on having a non-smokable option. And the gummies, the chews really have helped them in multiple ways. The indica ones for sleep time, and sativa or hybrid 1-to-1s during the day for those that whichever works for you.
I got a question here from an anonymous question. It says, do you have a dispensary in Gainesville?
We do have a dispensary in Gainesville, right on 34th Street by the Gumbies. And I know that because I went to UF, so I know all the areas there. So yeah, we do have one in Gainesville.
There you go, right there.
There you go.
Yep. Gainesville one. Well, see, you're a Gator, right?
I am a Gator. I'm a double Gator.
There you go. It said, do you have a dispensary in Miami?
So we do not have a dispensary in Miami yet, actually. So that's my territory. I'm in the Southeast. But in 2022, we're actually supposed to get 4 Miami dispensaries. So yay, finally making our way into the 305. I was born and raised in Miami, so I've been saying, come on, let's go. So Deerfield right now is our furthest south, besides we do have a Key West location. So if anybody is vacationing, you can right on Duval Street, we have a location. And then Hollywood is coming soon. And then eventually Miami by the end of 2022.
Sure. Hey, Michael actually made a nice comment about the fact that, this is fantastic. I have RLS and insomnia and trying different cannabis products. I think you can try different cannabis products again for insomnia and RLS. But I think, again, it goes back to a lot of the ones you've talked about during the webinar. Different products that are out there that can really help you with it. So anyway, so Jenny, we have now exhausted all the questions. And by the way, if anybody does have a question, please feel free to bring it up. But I would like to say thank you to everybody of you. We've got an hour and a half, which is great. And thank you everybody for sticking around for the hour and a half. Jenny, you have any closing remarks?
No, I just wanted to say, I hope you guys learned something. I hope that you have a little bit more knowledge and feel a little bit better that, cannabis can help with stress and anxiety, and can feel that you have, us to come to if you do have further questions about the cannabis program. We are here to help. We don't want anybody to feel like they're on their own island in this journey.
Yeah, and I think taking advantage of your consultation is really great. I know I'm a big believer in your products, and again, I'll throw my shameless plug at the transdermal patch, which is something that really helps a lot of people. I want to have some closing comments, and first of all, I want to thank everybody for hanging in there for an hour and a half. We appreciate it, and without you, the seminar series wouldn't be successful. We are here to really have at least just one person, maybe hopefully more, get their life back by the information that's here. And please feel free to let us know, and you can email us, let us know what's going on. We really would want to be able to help you. I know that this particular topic is very time sensitive, very timely, I should say, because of what's going on. And I hope that this has really helped with a lot of things. I do want to not only thank everybody for attending. Next week, we're doing a webinar on ketamine. And then next quarter, we'll have a whole new webinar series on a number of different topics. I'm kind of excited about next quarter. We're doing, again, we're doing sleep. We're doing cooking. There's a number of different fun things that we're going to be doing next quarter that really will help educate people in the use of medical cannabis. But I want to thank everybody for attending. And I want to thank a couple of people that really make this happen, which is Lee and Deja. They are the moderators in the background. They don't necessarily get the camera time, but they do all the work and make our life a lot easier. And Lee and Deja, thank you. And a special shout out to Alyssa. Alyssa is the person who, Kitero, who came up with the idea of Canna Chats, put this together, and without her, this wouldn't be happening. So special shout out to her, and I want to thank everybody for that. So thank everybody for being here, and I hope that you'll join us next quarter for the webinars. And for those of you who are interested in ketamine, next week is a webinar that we start at 6 o'clock, and hopefully, if you've been attending our webinar series, thank you for doing that. And you have a great holiday season, and we will see you early next year. So thank you. And Jenny, thank you and Move for what you've done. And everybody, thank you for attending.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks,
Everybody.
everyone.